We ready to go? Don't give me any Christmas presents. That's all I need. Right there. That is incredible. Incredible. 2 Peter 2. False teachers and their destruction. I told you I always get the fun ones. Here we go. I'm going to read this for us really quick because just in case you weren't able to do this week, I want you to hear what we're reading. But there were also false prophets among the people, just as there will be false teachers among you. They will secretly introduce destructive heresies, even denying the sovereign Lord who bought them, bringing swift destruction on themselves. Many will follow their shameful ways and will bring the way of truth into disrepute. In their greed, these teachers will exploit you with stories they have made up. Their condemnation has long been hanging over them, and their destruction has not been sleeping. And then the next part goes to say why why God punished people and saved others. And in the end it says, if this is so, then the Lord knows how to rescue godly men from trials and to hold the unrighteous for the day of judgment while continuing their punishment. This is the fun one. In all honesty, I actually had a lot of fun studying 2 Peter 2. As I marinated over these verses and cross-referenced scripture from the Bible to support this passage. I'm not going to double what you're going to talk about in your groups today. And I'm unsure if any of this is new to you or even super inspiring, but this is what I'd like to get out of today. That the Bible is so worth reading and studying and thinking about. And honestly, it's sometimes dramatic and sometimes actually kind of funny. Sometimes it's for mature audiences. If you did the whole thing, you will know. And it's always inspiring because it is in a way that only God can orchestrate. He puts passages together that not only connect in deep ways to each other, but they also connect to us to help us today, thousands of years later. This is his story, and it has been really, really fun to study it and learn more about it. So may this today be a trailer, just a little trailer to help you inspire to dig into the Word. I'm going to start with a little story about something that happened last week. On Thursday morning at 10:20, I got a phone call from my aunt. She's from out of town, but she was in Grand Rapids, and she said that my great-uncle Bill only probably had a few days left to live, and she was going to drive down with my grandma to go see him, and would I like to go? So 45 minutes later, I was in the car with her, and we were on our way to Cleveland. If you want to show the picture of him, this is my great-uncle Bill. He is not just, ladies, a 98-and-a-half-year-old great-uncle. He is one of the most humble, most peaceful men that we have ever met in our lives. My children have often said that he is like being with Jesus because of his love for others, his sweet demeanor, and his attention to their lives, his great nieces and nephews, and how he zones into each of them. He has never had a family of his own, so we are his family. As I sat on his bed, his words to me were very intentional, and they overflowed from his heart for the Lord. It was almost like a movie. In his worst physical state, he had peace because of the years he had spent pursuing God. This is what he said verbatim, because I video recorded it. He said to me, "Go in peace, serve the Lord, be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving each other as God has forgiven you." He said, "Night-night. I will love you forever." And yes, I cried, okay? And he said, "It's okay, your tears are beautiful." And I thought after I came back from Cleveland about this. This is Peter's farewell speech. And just as I leaned into my Uncle Bill's bed to hear his failing voice, may we lean into what Peter had to tell us, because these words were what he knew was probably going to be some of his last. So let's lean into a few of his teachings. Peter had already charged the readers earlier in this chapter to never stop growing in faith and virtue. And he explained just before these verses that we looked at last week, that he was an eyewitness to so much of what had happened. So much that the prophets never could have made this up. It was too good to be true. Only God could have done this, and it certainly was because of God. How awesome to be Peter, a man that had seen prophecy come to life right before his eyes. He knew all of this stuff, and he was friends with Jesus. But let's also remember Peter's past, because he was quite the character himself. And after Jesus had transformed his life, and he had lived with and ate with and camped with and traveled with Jesus, and he saw him in person, even when he was given an amazing chance to defend him, he had denied him right around the corner from where his best friend was being accused. Blame it on his hot-headed Middle Eastern roots, but this guy had some issues. He was really loyal, but he also really messed up. Later, it was recorded that our fickle Peter gets off track again. There was this whole debate between eating with Gentiles and Jews, and he was acting one way towards one group and one way to another group. And Paul, in Galatians, calls him out on this. He says, "You are leading people astray, Peter." He calls him out and he says, "You are not in line with the truth of the gospel." And this verse, I don't know why, this verse made me laugh, probably because I have 3.5 teenagers at home. Read this verse. This is straight from Paul's mouth. Here we go. "When Peter came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he was clearly in the wrong." I don't know, that just made me laugh because that's exactly how my teenagers would talk to each other. Right up in their face. Paul is saying, Peter, you were wrong. And yet, here we are listening to Peter in this incredible passage. I think that we just need to keep in mind that Peter had a track record, and he was writing about false prophets. So here in his last goodbye, Peter is honestly speaking from a lifetime of experience of what it meant not only to see people draw others away from God by false prophecy, but he had done it himself. He had once led others astray. He had denied the existence of not only his Lord, but his best friend. Talk about a frenemy. And even those most closely following Christ can make big mistakes. And he is just saying, that's not worth it. Peter would have also known, and I'm guessing most of his audience would have known, about the false prophets of the Old Testament. Because hundreds of years before then, there had been lots of prophets and false prophets, and they would have known about this. In the book of Jeremiah, the people are drawn to the false prophet Hananiah, who claimed that he was speaking for God. And quite frankly, he gave a much more appealing, lovey-dovey message than what Jeremiah had been giving. Jeremiah was giving God's message of truth, which included destruction due to their own obsession with idols and sin. And it was not well received because it did not feel good to his audience, right? So they turned to Hananiah's message, which was a false message, and it justified their sinful natures. And I'm going to read just a little piece of Jeremiah. This is when Jeremiah is responding to them after they have listened to the false prophecy. He says, this is Jeremiah 29. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those I carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and settle down. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number and do not decrease. Also seek peace and prosperity of the city which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. Yes, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. Do not let the prophets and diviners among you deceive you. Do not listen to the dreams you are encouraging them to have. They are prophesying lies to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares the Lord. This is what the Lord says. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my gracious promise to bring you back to this place. And then our favorite verse, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. Then you will call upon me and come to me and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart. So Peter probably would have known this. And these references, I'm sorry, I got on the wrong page here. This false prophet idea was not new to them. Even way back then, this was an old problem. It had continued even after Jesus walked on earth as well. In 2 Timothy 4, you can throw that verse up there. It says, "For the time will come when men will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers who say what their itching ears want to hear. They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths." It continues today. I think that it's easy to think of false prophets in terms of cults, bad leaders, churches gone rogue, groups of people with false ideas of God. And that's true. It's easy for our minds to travel to places of blatant, obvious defilement. And it's easy for us to use this thinking as well to justify why we are on track, why our churches or Bible studies are better than others. But what if it's not really that simple to see? The references from both Jeremiah and 2 Timothy, and as well as what Peter is saying, are also indicating that these false ideas will not always be very obvious. Following false teachers and ideas may actually almost look like the right thing. They may feel like the better option in the case of Jeremiah. They may actually be what our itching ears want to hear. And doesn't scratching an itch feel so good? Peter warns us in these verses that the untrue ways will possibly even be shiny and beautiful on the outside. But on the inside, they will be deliberate, divisive, self-willed heresies. They will pit us against each other, and they will deny the salvation of the Lord, and they will always bring us down. False teaching may also look like us needing to add something or anything to Jesus himself, indicating that he is not enough. So I do wonder if we are to scrutinize our own hearts today. Is there anything in us that we struggle with in this way? Maybe we do not feel like we are following false prophets around. But are there things that we feel like we need to add to Jesus in order to be saved? Or in order us to just feel good about walking with him? Do we control corners of our lives that we refuse to release to him? Do we trust that our faith is actually enough? Or that he really does adore us and has a great, great plan for us? If the stuff we believe about Jesus is 95% true, is that actually all of the truth? Honestly, to me, it is a bit overwhelming to think about because we have so much to discern. We have situations and confrontations and choices all the time. And the world is so loud. It is so loud. There's so much noise. It's no wonder we all feel like we have ADHD. How can we know that we are unknowingly not going down the wrong path? How do we know this? Well, it's actually, thankfully, sort of simple. We just have to know the truth. But how do we know that? Let's put on our imaginary woolly little coats, ladies. Start to do a little bah, because here we go. John 10:3, Jesus says this: "The watchman opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice." strangers, false prophets, false ideas. What a comfort that is to me. What does his voice sound like? Well, I'll tell you what the Lord's voice does not sound like. It does not ever sound like confusion. It does not sound like guilt. It does not sound like shame or bitterness or anger or lies. The voice of our Father does sound like love, salvation, forgiveness, peace, mercy, joy, clarity, and freedom. So may we turn our ears to the shepherd, the Lord Jesus, and spend more time with him so that we can hear his voice more easily. So back to Peter a second. He's already reminded us earlier, just before this, about all the virtues that we should put on: goodness, knowledge, self-control, perseverance, godliness, brotherly kindness, and love. Why do we do that? So that we will be effective in all of this. The funny thing is, Peter kind of gave us the answer before he gave us this problem, if you look at it. And what a legacy he left for us. This kind of messed up, hot-headed guy, forgiven, and then he kind of forgot, and then he messed up again, and he was given grace, and he was given second and third and fourth chances. And he tells us that it's okay, because Christ has given us more than enough to rescue us from these trials. Let us just tune our ears to his voice so that we will know the truth above all. And let's go back to my Uncle Bill. He is still with us. In the last week, in his humble little room in a small nursing home in Ohio, his room was flooded with people visiting him. These were not high society people coming to see him out of obligation. It was kind of more of a cast of characters. I imagine a little bit what the disciples may have looked like. People that are on the fringe, people that needed love, children that he taught at VBS this summer, people struggling through life. And they gathered around his bed and they lined up at times, listening to the blessing that he had for them, not because he is so great, but because he lived a life that closely followed the voice of the shepherd. And he got closer and closer to his heart. And the virtues that come from a life in tune with his voice speaks way louder than all the messages out there. Thank you so much, you guys. I'm going to have Cindy come up and talk about our service project.
Is this on? Okay. How many of you recognize this bag from Design spring sale 15, 20 years ago? I recycle it quite a bit, but I get the privilege of helping with service projects this year, and if you're not familiar with them, I'm going to explain the possibilities that we have. We'll be gathering ideas. This spring, we'll be gathering ideas, and you're welcome to share with me ideas that tie into the study. So suffering, if you think of areas where you know people in the community are suffering or something like that, we're just going to get a list of ideas, present it to the leadership, and come up with a spring service project. But our fall project is a way to say thank you to Keystone, and they've done this for a number of years, and I want to share with you what they are going to be doing. But I have not been in the holiday spirit yet, so I'm going to try to get us in the holiday spirit in just a minute. Are you getting there? This is my life, really. So anyway, hopefully this gets you in the spirit. Never mind. Okay. Thanksgiving, the church is going to provide $25 gift cards to Sibley Elementary School for 350 students and staff. They've done this every year. So if you would like to give to that project, I will have envelopes out there that you can write a check, or you can go online to Keystone, and under events, you'll find this site where you can donate. So either way. And then for Christmas, Keystone works with the Other Way Ministry, who sets up a Christmas store. And you'll see a couple slides here. I was amazed when I saw it, but they serve 700 families, and they like them to come to the shop, and then they can shop with dignity at a lower cost price. With this one, you can purchase the gifts. I have a form that has a key code for Amazon, and so you can do that. And then, or you can just give a donation in the lobby. And we get to do this for the next 3 weeks. Both of them have to be done by Thanksgiving so that they can get the gifts to the organizations. You can give to one or you can give to both. If you do not want to do it online, I have envelopes for both. I want you to consider to encourage your families with this, even if you're given a monetary, if you have communication with them or you get them involved in the gift giving, I think it helps give this spirit of giving. Matthew 25 says, you did this for one of the least of these, you did it for me. So I think that's the spirit I want our hearts to have in the giving this year. So I thank you for the consideration. You can give it over in the next 3 weeks, and let's see what God can do in Common Ground supporting Keystone. So thank you for that, and I get to dismiss you for class.